All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Lockdown, where we talk to different leaders who are currently locked down and to kind of talk to them about what they're going through in their lives and how this stay at home has really affected them. And today I'm really excited to have on a very good friend of mine, Mr. Kyle Lee. I can't remember the law firm that he represents. It's Lee Law. It's Lee Law. And what's so important about this, about him being on today, is he is an employment attorney. And I'm talking to him. We decided, yeah, this would be a really great discussion to have, because there are so many people, out of work because of COVID-19, and there's a lot of new laws out for employment laws. And Kyle Mr. Lee here can bring us up to date. Let's jump on in, as if we haven't already started up. But if you could tell a little bit about your pedigree, your background, where you're from, what you're doing now.
Yeah. So as you already stated, I'm an employment attorney here in Tampa. We serve all of Florida, and what we do is we specialize in representing individuals against their companies. There could be a variety of matters. Right now, of course, we're going to talk about the coronavirus and how that impacts employment relations. But what I normally do when we're not within this quarantine and going through this pandemic, what I normally do is I help people recover unpaid wages. Those could be minimum wages. Those could be overtime hours that they're not being paid for. I assist people with whistleblower claims. Let's say you make a complaint at your job about some type of illegal activity and you're terminated for that. I would help you recover some type of wages and hopefully help you to get back to normal if you're terminated for that. We also do other areas of employment law, including discrimination, harassment, sexual harassment, those types of cases. But right now, what the hot topics are right now is the FMLA, which is the Family Medical Leave Act. That's medical leave for a serious illness, which we know COVID-19 is. And FMLA is the law. It's a federal law that applies to workers and gives them the right to take leave, job protected leave, in order to care for themselves who are suffering from a serious illness, or to care for a loved one who's suffering from a serious illness.
Right, and obviously that's huge right now, because we've got a great number of people who are out of work. For so many reasons, right? Out of work, let's say due to illness, right? Due to COVID. I think a lot of times when or recently when I've been talking to people about being out of work, it's been because everything's shut down, or people are having to work from home, or people in restaurants. That's a rough one, right? So many restaurants are just closed down, or having to scale back ridiculously. Well, look, I've been a server before, and that was I made okay money, being brand new married or newly married back in the day, and man, if that was gone, for a long time, that was like a supplementary income, or not supplementary, complementary income, just on top, but that was needed. And now we have so many employees in the hospitality industry, and that just scratched the surface. So I think a lot of times recently we've been thinking, I've been anyways, thinking about people out of business, are being out of work, it's because of that. But then there's also the other issue, and I think maybe we're not thinking about it too much, because, when people get sick with COVID. Now, obviously, when someone gets sick with COVID, the first thing goes to your mind is, oh my goodness, they're sick. How are they going to get better? It's not, oh, they're out of work. But that's a huge part. If they're an adult, the chances are that we're, they're if not the breadwinner, then they are, contributing to the finances of the home, and now that chunk of change is gone. And and I'm sure you're going to talk about somebody who is sick, and now maybe they are the breadwinner. Now they're sick, and then the spouse has to stop working. Even if they are able to work, they have to stop working and now take care of the spouse.
Right.
So I'm sure you agree, it's a really crazy, tough situation when it comes to employment law. And so some things have just recently changed up. Definitely want you to talk about those if you could.
Yeah. So you mentioned on a few important factors. You talked about unemployment, but also underemployment. where you're working and you are technically employed, but maybe your hours have been reduced because of COVID, or maybe you are in a position that's a traditionally tipped position, like you said, servers, waiters, bartenders, those people that are in tipped positions, think about them, right? So restaurants right now are doing a lot of carry out, right? And a lot of people, they don't tip during carry out. Tipped employees here in Florida, they receive what's called the tipped minimum wage, which is just a little bit over $5. Now, minimum wage here in Florida is higher than that, right? It's over $8. But what we do is in Florida, you are entitled to, if you're a server, you're entitled to the tipped minimum wage, which is $5. And the extra $3 and change comes from tips. And that's how the employer is able to make up the difference and make sure you're receiving at least the minimum wage. You have a situation now where you have a lot of servers, waiters who are working at restaurants that are doing carry out only. Those individuals are probably still receiving the tipped minimum wage of $5 and aren't necessarily, may not be receiving the normal amount of tips that they're used to. And so now you have a situation where people are underemployed. That could be a potential issue. You did mention that. I wanted to just bring that up and explain how that works, how servers are paid, and how does the tipped minimum wage apply to this type of situation.
Right, definitely. So, and I feel it's necessary to add in there, and also I wish I didn't have to, but if you are in a position where you are ordering out food or having someone deliver it, Uber Eats, Postmates, whatever it is, please tip those servers. Please tip those people who are servicing you. It's very important,
Yeah, they may still be employed, but like you said, you've experienced it when you worked as a server. The vast majority of your money, a good chunk of your money, is coming from the tips that you earn. Absolutely. Not necessarily the $5 that you're being paid per hour, but it's the tips. And you have a situation where there might be a lot of people right now who are technically employed, right, but the amount of money that they're receiving at their places of employment have dropped off dramatically. And so that does roll into, well, what do we do? And why does it drop off dramatically? Well, we know that a lot of places have closed down due to COVID. So we've received a lot of calls from employees who are affected negatively by their businesses closing down. And so I think there's a few issues that we can look at there when we're trying to determine what rights do the employees have? What can the employees do? Now, if you individually, you personally have been affected by COVID, then you have new rights that were just approved and published by the Department of Labor as of April 1, 2020. So just 5 days ago. And these are brand new laws. What they're doing is they're amending the Family Medical Leave Act. A lot of people realize or recognize the Family Medical Leave Act as maternity leave. That's what we're all very familiar with, maternity leave. And what that is generally is just job protected leave. You have the right to leave your company and take time off if you're having a child or adopting a child to spend time with that child without fear of losing your job. Now, traditionally, that's been an unpaid leave. It's been your right to take it, but it is unpaid. The change, that leave is not just maternity leave. It's just the most common aspect of that leave. There's also, of course, if you're having a serious medical condition, or if you're one of your loved ones, a family member is having a serious medical condition, you have the ability and right to take leave from your job to care for them. But again, traditionally, that's been an unpaid leave. But as of April 1, 2020, there's been an amendment to that law. And the amendment is that your leave will now be paid, a portion of it at least. So let's say that you were affected by COVID. You contracted that disease and it was affecting you, or you were forced to be quarantined for whatever reason by a medical professional, or you were experiencing symptoms and you think that you may have COVID and you have the symptoms that resemble COVID. At that point in time, now you'd be able to take that job protected leave. But the first 2 weeks of that leave would be paid at your regular rate. You'd get 8 to 80 hours. Yeah, paid. And that's brand new. That's brand new because before it was not paid. It would be unpaid leave. So your job is protected and you're getting paid for those first 2 weeks.
So that's like unprecedented.
The next, yes, it is. It's big. I mean, for those of us who are in the employment field, whether you're an HR or maybe you're an employment lawyer, it's unprecedented because we have a lot of laws, and we're talking about FMLA right now, but there are other laws, let's say Americans with Disabilities Act. There are other laws that allow you to take leave, but it's always been unpaid. So this is uncharted territory where we are talking about a leave that is paid. So your first 2 weeks, again, if you are personally experiencing COVID symptoms or have been forced to be quarantined, at that point in time, you get 2 weeks paid. The next 2 weeks at your full rate, at your regular rate. the next 2 weeks, you would be able to get paid at up to 2/3 of your regular rate for the next 4 weeks, or excuse me, the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
And so that's 4 weeks of paid leave, and that's just something that's, again, that's not been heard of, and that's not been the case for as long as these laws have been in place. But that's what the government has done. Federal government has done. These are federal laws in order to assist people who are going through this pandemic, who are affected by this pandemic.
That's absolutely huge. So,
Yeah.
So when it comes to, all right, so well, how do they? I guess how would they take advantage of that? How would someone take advantage of? Is that something that the employer would automatically enact, or is that something that people need to take in their own control?
So, yeah, okay. So that's a good question. And so when we're talking about FMLA, great question. So when we're talking about FMLA, and again, that's the Family Medical Leave Act. When we're talking about the FMLA, normally it applies to companies that have 50 or more individuals. This amendment to it, though, this amendment that we're discussing today, applies to companies that have 500 or less. So if you work for one of these large companies, if you work for Verizon, if you work for Walmart, it probably won't apply. But these are for companies that have 500 or less employees, 500 or fewer employees. How you would take advantage of it would be the same way as if you were taking regular leave before the COVID pandemic. You would go to your HR and you would request FMLA paperwork, leave paperwork. You would state your reason for that leave. You're likely going to have to provide doctor's note or some type of medical documentation supporting your reason for leave. But once you've done so, they don't have a choice but to grant you that leave.
Wow. What type of position, I just wonder, is that putting all these businesses in? I mean, that's money that has to be paid by the companies.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? Now, what type of?
Now, there may be some reimbursement. Now, those companies may be able to get that reimbursement, get those wages reimbursed from the federal government. But it is interesting, though, that the law is drafted towards companies with 500 or less, which I think would be the companies that probably have a tougher time paying, paying for that. Yeah.
Right. I would definitely imagine that. So, I mean, obviously, it's all about the individual. It's all about that personal caring, that well-being of that individual, right?
Right.
And we're talking about maybe right now it's not a vast number of people in one company that are sick, but, and I don't want to fear monger or anything, but things can get, can get larger, and I'm sure hopefully maybe they adjust the law accordingly. But I mean, that could, right now you have companies 500 and lower. I mean, is there a minimum? So could it be like company of 20, 30 people?
So before, the minimum was 50.
Right.
Although with these amendments, I don't believe there is a minimum.
Wow. So you have companies where, I mean, 40, 50, people, 30 people, 10 people. And now if they have to pay out and they're not getting any money in, they're not bringing any money in.
I think the only exception would be if there's a company that's so small that's able to show that there's a serious financial hardship to them doing so, that they might be able to avoid the paid portion of the leave. But that was the second part that was interesting of this law. The first part, of course, is that the leave is paid, that you've always had access to the leave, but it's never been paid. The second part that's interesting is it applies to companies of all sizes, companies under 500, but that includes companies less than 50. And this law has traditionally only applied to companies that are 50 or more. So you do have circumstances where companies that are 20 people really have to start paying attention.
Right, definitely. Wow, that's
but wait, more.
Huge. Oh, wait, there's more. But wait,
there's more. I'm not done. So there's more. So we've talked about if you're caring for yourself, or maybe if you're caring for a loved one who's experiencing those symptoms of COVID. But there's another aspect of this. As we all know, schools around the country have been shut down. The semesters have closed, whether that's high school, college, all the way down to nursery school. All of those schools have closed down due to this. And so that puts a big burden on parents, because parents are expecting their kids to be at school while they're at work. And when their kids are not able to be at school, the parent is put in a tough position of, how do I care for my kid while also being required to go into the office and work.
Right.
And so this law addresses that as well, this update to the FMLA. So what it allows for is parents to get up to 12 weeks off, right? Paid at 2/3 your regular rate. If you're staying at home to care for your child whose school has closed as a result of COVID-19.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's
huge.
that's almost all of us, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
so many people.
Yeah.
That's anyone with kids in public or private. Yeah, private schools,
Yeah.
I'm sure, are closed down.
And all the way down to childcare, nursery school. All the way down.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And how would they?
So,
And the same way they would just contact their HR, contact their employer.
yep, and you'd request that leave, and you can get 2/3. Again, it's 2/3 of your pay, but you can get 2/3 of your pay for 10 weeks or 12 weeks if you are show that you're doing this, you're taking time off of work to care for your children who are, again, displaced or out of school because the school's closed as a result of COVID-19.
So the employee would get 2/3 of their wage, and for up to 12 weeks, and they don't have to work. They're at that
No, you
time.
don't work during that. No, you don't work during that time. So here's what I've been advising a lot of my potential clients and clients on doing is a lot of my clients, they want to work. This is a tough time. This is a difficult time. And people are losing jobs left and right. We expect the unemployment numbers to skyrocket. And here in Florida, it's been right around 3%. We expect that to go way up, maybe around 15% when this is all said and done, maybe around the summertime. Yeah. So we expect the unemployment numbers to go. A lot of my clients and the people who've contacted me over the last few weeks, they're interested in working, but again, they're put in that tough position of, well, my employer wants me to come into the office, but I do have to stay home to care for my child. What do I do? And so what I've been advising them is to say, before we take the step of FMLA, which they are entitled to that leave, right? And you receive 2/3 of your pay and stay home with your kid, and you don't have to work at all. I say to them, well, let's see if we can work with the employer. Let's see if there's an opportunity for you to have a work from home aspect of your job, which would allow the employer to receive the benefit of your work, and then the employee would have the satisfaction of knowing that they're providing that service to their employer, which is what they want to do. They want to be working. A lot of times they don't want to be at home not working. It's just that if there's no one to care for their kid, that's a choice that they have to make, of course.
Yeah, that's one thing. One thing I'm seeing a lot of right now is a lot of creativity. A lot of creativity when it comes to, how can we get things done? A good friend of mine, David Michaels, he said something. We were roommates when we were 19 years old, and he said something that actually I typed up and I had it hanging up. I actually saw it on my desk in a pile of papers a few weeks ago. But it said, the key to success is to become a how thinker and not an if thinker, right? So how can we get these things done? Not if this was like this, then it's how can we get this done? And that's what I'm seeing a lot of right now and people are getting creative with, okay, well, I want to work. I can't come into the office. How can I work and still get paid? So I'm like that. I mean, being an attorney, everything's negotiable. Everything's negotiable. Even if you have a contract already signed in hand, okay, well, let's renegotiate this contract. It's not going to hurt to ask. And I think that's so that's one thing that I see. I could see being troublesome is, even when someone is at work, they're at work all day and they're right there with other people who work with them. They're right there with administration. Sometimes they're a little hesitant or they're a little shy to even go forth and ask for, certain conditions being met or whatever it is, concessions, whatever it might be. And now they're removed from the workplace. So they don't have that connection, that face-to-face connection. And there's all these other variables going on that, it's all new territory. So I can see that there's more and more people out there maybe being hesitant, even more hesitant than they would before. And maybe even thinking, well, there's nothing I can do. I feel bad for, and I've been in that place before. I'm sure you've been in that place of feeling of like hopelessness, like I can't do anything,
Right.
And I feel there's I have so much empathy for people right now because I know people are feeling that way. I can't do anything. That's rough.
Yeah, a lot of what we have to do is, as an attorney, yes, you're a litigator, but you're also a counselor. And that's exactly right. We have to counsel our clients on what does the law say and what steps can you take in order to possibly achieve that goal, right? And a lot of times, like I said, the goal is they do want to work from home. They just don't know how to go about approaching that, or they don't know how the laws have changed and how those laws apply to their current working situation.
And also,
there are other there are other laws that apply as well. And I'm just talking right now about, of course, the new updates to the Family Medical Leave Act, which allows for paid leave. But there are other laws.
There you go.
Sorry. Yep. There are other laws as well. Right now, we're just discussing the Family Medical Leave Act and the updates to it. But there are certain other laws, such as the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, you have a certain percentage of our population that has pre-existing conditions that make them extremely susceptible and vulnerable to the coronavirus.
Right.
What those individuals can do, they have rights as well, even though they haven't contracted COVID or haven't come in contact with the coronavirus. What they could do is ask for an accommodation, and that accommodation is that they work from home. Because of their disability, they don't want to expose themselves to somebody who has coronavirus because of their, let's say, weakened immune system or something along those lines. So they would have the ability, as long as, of course, assuming that they can do their job from home. There's certain jobs, of course, that you can't do from home.
Right.
If you're a security guard, for instance, you can't be a security guard from home. You need to be at the premise, on premise. But assuming it is a job that you can do from home, they would have the added protection of the Americans with Disabilities Act to say, hey, I know that you're having all of our, let's say, software designers come into the office, but I need to work from home because I have this pre-existing condition, which makes me vulnerable to COVID.
Wow. Well,
yeah.
I'm glad to hear that there are some provisions set up and some laws being amended and being updated to help those people. So you talked a little about unemployment, and
right.
I want you to, if you could, talk more on that. Not just on Florida,
sure.
but all out.
Apologize. Yep.
Can you put the iPhone back? I kind of like seeing iPhone. It says iPhone when it comes up.
Oh, is that what it does?
Yeah.
The iPhone? Yeah, I'm getting calls. That's what's happening. I'm getting calls right now. So I keep denying them. Okay, so unemployment. So we talked about what can you do if you have contracted it, what rights do you have if you are being quarantined, what rights do you have if you have a weakened immune system for another pre-existing condition. So the last thing is, well, okay, let's say that you do get laid off or you do get fired. What can you do? Florida's unemployment laws allow you to collect unemployment as long as you're terminated or laid off through no fault of your own. And that's obviously happening to a lot of people who would otherwise be working, except for this pandemic is taking place, which has caused the business owners a lot of times to either completely close or reduce the amount of work that they're able to perform. And of course, that means they're going to lay their employees off. So it's very common right now. There are some updates and changes to the unemployment laws. Traditionally, somebody here in Florida can receive up to $275 per week. Now that's dependent on how much income you earned, but it's a calculation that the Department of Economic Opportunity does. They use to determine how much you can receive. But if you're making $1 million a month, your max will be $275 per week. That's the absolute max. What the federal government has done is decided to add to the state of Florida's unemployment benefit, and they're providing an extra $600 per week, as long as you've been laid off or furloughed as a result of COVID-19. And so
Really?
now, so employees now have the ability to take advantage of both the $275 a week, assuming they can receive the maximum, and the $600 from the federal government, which gives you a total of $875 per week. The interesting thing about the one difference is between the state and the federal is the state calculation, again, of that 275, the maximum of 275 is based on how much you are earning. It's a calculation that they use to determine that. You could, of course, receive a lot less. The federal is $600, regardless of how much you are earning.
Wow.
And so even if you were earning less than $600 in a week, you could still receive that full $600 from the federal government, as long as your job has been eliminated or you've been laid off or terminated due to COVID-19. And you can get both of them, and they're not two separate applications. You can do it all through the state system.
Wow. So I was about to make a joke on my behalf, but then thinking about the joke, I was like, well, no, this would kind of concern people, or this might be helpful to others. The joke was, I'm self-employed.
Right.
Can I lay myself off and then collect? But then I started thinking, I was like, wait a second, there's a lot of people out there like myself. I'm a trainer. I give personal development, professional development, skills sessions to people, to different companies, large companies, and I'm now getting, virtual trainings kind of off but it's, I've had all my face-to-face trainings obviously canceled, postponed. So what's out there for people who are self-employed? And
so my understanding,
this is just my way of getting free legal advice.
no, I give you free medical advice too.
Free medical, yeah, please. Yeah,
it won't be paid.
Get that spot checked out, please.
Yeah. So, and that's another change, is traditionally unemployment here in Florida. First of all, there were no federal benefits that you were going to receive. You would receive, if we were talking last year, right? There's no federal benefits you would receive. You would get up to $275 through the state. Now that the federal government is providing the $600, my understanding is that the federal government is allowing individuals who are sole proprietors, independent contractors, who have seen a downturn in their business, they have the ability to also apply for unemployment benefits and other financial programs to assist those individuals. But that is, again, so they've brought in the scope of individuals who can apply for unemployment benefits.
Wow, that's
on
really
the federal side.
On the federal side, right? On the state side, it's still it's questionable, or you won't be able to get the 215 or 275.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be able to do that as an independent contractor, a sole proprietor, gig worker. But again, those individuals, the gig workers, contractors, sole proprietors, would have the ability to receive benefits through the federal side.
And by gig worker, you mean like Uber driver or?
Correct. Yeah, okay. So there's a ton of gig, a lot of gig work where you're essentially a contractor, but you do, like you said, you're an Uber driver, or maybe you do food delivery, or you do website design or social media, that type of thing.
Very cool. Wow. That is a big surprise that, it's covering independent contractors too.
Well, I think, they say that the vast majority of individuals in the United States work for a small business. Right. So the federal government has been looking into how to assist those who are small businesses, all the way down to sole proprietors, individual contractors, and gig workers. So they're making money available and funds available to those individuals as well.
Oh, that's really awesome. All right. So outside that, are there any other laws that have been people should be taking focus of, or maybe new laws updates that people need to know of?
Those are the major ones right now. I'm sure that there will continue to be changes made, but those are the newest and latest and greatest, you can say, laws that just came out less than a week ago. That's
really cool. I knew when we were talking last night, I knew this was going to be a powerful, a very important conversation. I just knew. And even last night, you started telling me a little about the unemployment, and I told you to stop. I was like, you know what? I kind of want to be surprised. I want to hear all these things fresh and new. And I'm extremely surprised. More people need to know this information. Everyone needs to know this information, really. So
absolutely. It's either going to affect. That unemployment rate, unfortunately, will continue to climb. And so that means it's going to touch a lot more, a lot of individuals. And so, it's great to get this information out, and so people can know what options they have while they try to find subsequent income and employment.
And for the federal, to claim unemployment, is it a different website that you have to go to outside of the state unemployment, or?
You can do it all together on the state.
Okay. Do you know what's the best way to Google? I'm just Google unemployment.
The Department of Economic Opportunity is who handles that here in Florida.
Okay, cool. I'll have a link right here. No, you can't click on the link. I'll have the website right here. If you're clicking on the link and it's getting full screen and back to small screen, sorry, it's not a clickable link. One thing I want to first, thank you so much for all this information.
Absolutely.
Really greatly appreciate it. I know anyone watching this, I'm sure they appreciate it as well. And if you are watching this and you, I wasn't going to say this because it's so cliche and almost like so I didn't want to be like, hey, make sure to share this out with your friends, post this on your Facebook, post it on LinkedIn, blah blah. I didn't want to do that, just because I don't want to pander or But this information, I'm going to ask people, yeah, please share this with other people. You might not even know. Well, everyone you know, they have a job. You know, almost everyone has a job, and almost everyone is going through some type of hardship. And chances are they don't know this information.
Right.
So please share this information out there. And if you could share the video, maybe that, you know, that'll help them as well. So one of the main things I hope to bring people with this series, this leadership lockdown series, is you know, helping people kind of cope with this new way of working, where they're working from home, and there's a lot of challenges, right? So you have your own law firm. For a little bit you work from home, and now you're working from your office. A caveat, that little asterisk out there, that you're going to your office is not far away from your home. There's no one else in your office. You're the only one there. So, so you're socially distancing yourself.
Yeah, we're doing, you know, traditionally we do, we normally have our clients come into the office, and we like to meet face to face and spend at least an hour interacting with our potential clients in order to fully understand their case and their goals and propose solutions. We haven't been able to do that. We've been practicing the social distancing, and a lot of our potential clients are calling in, and we're doing all of that over the phone. So no, we have. So,
are you saying, or would you say that like law, that your business has taken a hit as well due to this?
Yeah, and so you know, we, of course, there's a lot of phone calls because there are a lot of individuals who are being laid off, or their hours are being reduced, or their pay is being reduced. There's a lot of factors going in. So those individuals have been calling in order to get a complete understanding of their rights and how they can respond to their employer's actions, and if there is anything they can do. So I would say that the number has gone up in terms of those phone calls. However, the challenge with our business is the courts are essentially closed.
Right.
In-person hearings have been canceled. Mediations, where you have the opportunity to sit down with the other side and settle your case, have been canceled. Depositions where we'd be able to face-to-face question those individuals that we're suing, those have all been canceled. Trials canceled. So you have, at least in my business, you have the potential clients calling in and asking for information, and maybe they do have cases, but the cases that you currently have, where you had a certain what we call a date certain, a date on the calendar. Maybe that was a trial date, or a deposition date, or a mediation date. All of those have been pushed. Those have all been canceled and moved. Yeah.
That was my next question, wondering about, you know, the business that you had, that you were, those clients that you were working with. So everything's been put on a back burner or hold, or, you know.
Wait.
Wow.
Yeah. And there are some proceedings taking place. I think there's, of course, criminal proceedings taking place, but in terms of civil action, which is what I deal with, where you're seeking monetary relief. I apologize. Where you're seeking monetary relief, those have been put on the back burner.
Oh, wow. So being someone who maybe not work from home, you work from an office, but you're working alone, you're not around other people. So it's almost working from home, right? There's still some challenges. I know you love working from home. No, it's definitely challenging. Because what challenges did you face? Because you said you worked at home for like a little bit. What challenges did you face when you were working at home?
Well, you know, I had 2 toddlers at the time,
right?
And it's, you know, toddlers are going to toddler.
They're going to be toddlers.
They're going to be toddlers. They're going to run around and yell and scream, and it makes it difficult when you're trying to have a serious conversation with a potential client regarding, you know, their livelihood. I'm not dealing with people's lives, so to speak, you know, from a medical point of view, of course, but this is their livelihood. This is how they provide for their families. You know, they provide for the people that they love the most in this world. And so there's a lot of serious and intimate conversations that you're having about these people who are finding themselves in one of the worst positions they've ever experienced in their life is, you know, let's say, for instance, losing their job and not knowing how they're going to provide for their family next month. It's hard to have those serious conversations when there's kids yelling and screaming in the background. So for this type of work that I'm in, I found that it's best that I come to the office and find a place where I can respect those potential clients, where we can sit down and have a peaceful conversation without any distractions. I can give them my undivided attention.
Awesome. Well, very good. Yep. Hey, man, I thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to add on there? Anything else? Any advice you want to give people out there who are in need or searching or maybe just confused of what to do?
yeah, and I'm not necessarily plugging myself, but contact an attorney if you have any serious questions about this. If you think that you may be affected by this, reach out to an attorney. It doesn't have to be me. There's plenty of us, plenty of employment lawyers there. Just reach out to someone and figure out what your rights are, because just this week, you as an employee have have gained so many new rights that you may be protected. You may have more rights than you believe, and it's worth it when you're talking about your livelihood, especially in these times where finding the next job may be very hard to do. It's worth it to reach out to a lawyer and just figure out what you can do.
Awesome, thank you so much. And you don't have to plug yourself. I'll plug you. If you have any of these questions, if you have questions about employment law, if you're an employer and you have questions as well, because Greg, you don't just represent the employees, you also have experience representing and giving advice from counseling employers, correct?
Yeah, a lot of my experience prior to starting my firm was working for employers, counseling employers, and helping them through these difficult times as well.
Very good. So if you are an employee who's going through some difficult times right now, and when it comes to your employment, you're not really sure what path to take, contact Kyle Lee at KyleLeeLaw.com, correct?
That's
right.
Kyle,
KyleLeeLaw.com.
That's correct. Yep. And
the link will be right here. I've always wanted to do that in like videos. You see people are like, the link's right here, but then it comes out over here.
Yeah.
It's really going to be up here.
And that's what we do. We specialize in employment law. We don't do car accidents. We don't do slip and falls or anything like that. We do employment law. That's what we do. So I'm happy to counsel and advise as many people as I can who have questions regarding their rights and how these laws may affect their rights in the workplace.
Very cool. And would you rather people go to your website or email you? Go to your website to contact you and then do a physical
either works. Yeah, either works, or they can send me an email directly or give me a phone call.
Awesome. What's that email address?
My email address is my first name, Kyle, at KyleLeeLaw.com.
Very good. Kyle at KyleLeeLaw.com. Kyle Lee, I thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Really appreciate you coming on and advising a lot of people out there, and heck, advising me, giving me all of this information. I've learned something. Wait, that's what final question to you. So since you have taken a hit financially in your company, could you also apply for the unemployment or the money from the federal side? Yeah,
there are certain benefits that are available to business owners like myself.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yep,
very
absolutely.
Cool. Good stuff. It's the more you know, right?
The more you know.
The more you know. Dun, 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 dun. Awesome. Kyle, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to us hanging out and doing another one of these. Anytime that anything changes up, please let me know so we can have another session here. All right.
No, I'm glad you did. Great concept, and you're training people. That's what you are called to do. That's what you're passionate about. And if you can't be there in person, you're finding a way to come into their homes, digitally. So I think it's great what you're doing, and you're getting the word out. I hope that you have a lot of other guests who can shed light on different aspects of how this coronavirus has affected the world. But we appreciate you as well, getting that message out. It takes both sides. Takes both sides.
It does. Yep. It does take both sides. Maybe three sides, consider, maybe depending on how many people are involved. Could be 5. I don't know. I'm no mathematician. Awesome. Kyle, thank you so much.
All right. See you.
See you.